is Don't Get Me Started. This is a conversation about advertising. And here is your host, freelance creative director and creative circus department head, Dan Balser.
Guys, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Just so you know, we are talking with Zach Canfield, and just a little trivia to the listeners out there and the fans that I have, both of you. Zach, I think, is on the top of the downloads chart. I think that, believe it or not, Zach, if you look at the list of guests, that this prestigious guest list, I'm not calling the podcast prestigious because it's just me talking to really awesome people. I think Ted Royer's first episode for a while was the most downloaded, and right now I think Zach Canfield is a nose ahead of the rest of the field. So we're going to do a second conversation with Zach today.
That's all my family. I just had a family reunion,
you have a massive
and I told them all.
You rented out State Farm Arena here in Atlanta.
I grew up in Utah. There's big families there.
I contend that it's because of your job.
Yeah, probably.
And I want to talk about your job. Zach is associate partner and director of talent at Goodby, Silverstein and Partners, which means he is responsible for the hiring of the creatives that go work at what I would consider one of the cornerstone advertising agencies in the history of American advertising. And I'm not being hyperbolic. I actually mean that. If you break down advertising eras from the great ones of the 60s, where it was Bernbach, the 80s and 90s of Fallon and others, this most recent generation and bleeding into our current generation, Goodby, Silverstein and Partners, is right at the top. And I'm going to riff and ad-lib a little bit of the bio for Zach. Zach is, I've met a lot of recruiters, I've met a lot of creative directors. Zach has an instinct about creatives. He likes to get to know them and gets to know them quickly. He's a very creative recruiter who looks outside of traditional channels to find smart, creative people to go work at Goodby, Silverstein and Partners. And I genuinely believe that Rich and Jeff are lucky to have Zach working at Goodby, Silverstein and Partners.
Thank you.
And I'm always inspired and enthused after conversation with Zach, and we have not yet had this conversation, so I hope that the listeners feel the same way. Zach, welcome back to the circus.
Thank you so much. I love coming here. I come here a lot. I actually asked today if I come here more than anyone else.
I don't know if
Probably
you
here about 4 times a year.
That's a lot. I think that's smart since we have 4 graduations a year.
I love this school, especially the writers you put out are just crazy good. And the kinship, maybe I've said this before, but if you looked at the batting average of the students that come out of the circus, for whatever reason, they seamlessly come into our agency.
It's great. It's really great to hear that. So I don't have necessarily a game plan. I want to break this into 2 parts. I want to talk, first of all, we talk to students a lot about how to email and reach out to creative directors and recruiters. I want to talk a little bit about what it looks like on the other side of that conversation. I want to know a little bit about what your job is and how you work. Mm-hmm. And then I want to go over this great article that you wrote for Adweek about these tips for looking for a job.
Yeah.
But first off, so you had mentioned earlier today, before we started recording, that last year alone, you hired 55 creatives. That's more than one a week at Goodby, Silverstein and Partners. I want to know what does it look like? You have 5 open orders. How do you find out that you need to hire people? How do you evaluate talent? Do you keep a creative director's sensibility in your mind when you're looking at books? Talk a little bit about how the process starts and how it looks from your end when it's time to start looking at junior books.
Or
senior books.
Most agencies hire. There's only really probably 3 scenarios, right? Growth.
New business. So you just won BMW.
Yeah. So you win a bunch of new business, which is why we hired a ton last year. You hire people when other people quit. And then you hire people when you're making investments into certain groups. Mm-hmm. So we have a really great technology group. We have a really great design group. And so even though we don't have new clients necessarily paying for that, occasionally we'll feel really strongly about wanting to put money into certain areas.
To have capability.
Yeah. So when people are reaching out to me, who want a job, usually you need one of those 3 things in order for me to be able to pull people in.
Mm-hmm. So how do you know that the pitch went well? You know you're probably going to get this piece of business. Are you already looking? Or are you waiting for the creative directors to be assigned? How does it work? How do you know when it's time that there's actually a job to be filled?
Well, so it's we're not a really process-driven company, and so process isn't necessarily our forte. It's a lot of just kind of feeling it out as we go.
Doing it by hand.
So so when we won BMW, they'll come in with a scope of work. They'll give us a prediction of what they want to do that year. It's not exact,
right? I'm sure it's not.
And then they'll tell us all this stuff, and then we have to kind of be like, well, I think that's like 7 bodies there and 2 there roughly and 3. But once they're actually in the building, it changes. It can change dramatically. So we'll make a rough outline. So we won Pepsi, Liberty Mutual, and BMW all right behind each other, and that's an agency right there.
That's a lot. Yeah.
And so I roughly knew kind of like just from, I guess, the experience I have of kind of how many people I think this is going to be. And then what happens is we just go pretty wild trying to go out and find great people. And then what I tell people is, there's a period of waiting for the dust to settle. So it takes a year to hire that many people.
Mm-hmm.
And
you say you tell people, you mean the potential hires?
So at a certain point in this process, if you're reaching out to me and you know that we've won all this business, you might think, well, Zach's definitely got some jobs. But towards the end of this thing, I might actually be saying, you know what, I actually kind of need to wait for the dust to settle a little bit. I need to, once all the bodies are in and the clients are fully established, I'll know more about what else we need to do. Sometimes we might be off by a couple, in which case we can bring some more people in. The other part of your question is, I think that people think that recruiters just always have like a roster of people that they can call any minute and get them in. It's not really the case. I wish it was. I mean, it's a little bit. You have that, but the reality is, we are proactively recruiting. We're not waiting for people to reach out to us. Like we're going after people that we're really excited about. Mm-hmm. People we're really excited about are generally really good. They're generally in jobs that are taking care of them because they're standout employees there. Mm-hmm.
So when you get a new piece of business like a BMW, you're looking at multiple levels to hire?
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. And then it gets more complex as we get up, right? So like junior art director, in Minnesota, if I call them and say, come work with Rich Silverstein on BMW, it's a pretty great call to get. Now, creative director in Minnesota, well, shit, you got 2 kids,
right?
Partners working. It's much more complex. So again, there's not this just like, I wish I just had this roster of people that I knew the second we win BMW, it's like, I got the 20 people we're going to hire. But really, it's really fluid. Humans are complex. There's like so many different things going on in our lives all the time.
You like this part of it? You like this part of it?
Well, it's a long-term, I do. It's actually one of the most fun parts of my job, which is, generally when I'm having conversations with people, I think a lot of recruiters, they have like a whiteboard behind them. Mm-hmm. And it's like every time you hire someone, you raise the level and then you have a boss looking at that and judging you. And I don't have that. And so most of my conversations aren't for today. Most of my conversations are just, like, I want to get to know people.
So how do you keep track of it? How do you keep it?
Data. I have a really bad memory, and so I have a database that I've made myself, and I do it based never on names. Right. I do it based on specific things that I can recall. Right.
Interesting.
So you were telling me about your daughter today, and like what she studies, like things like that. I'll put in keywords,
right? And
so
I should have just said redhead too. If you know,
I literally have people's shoe colors in my database.
Right.
What people really smell
red,
like,
very red hair. So
yeah, no, but seriously,
so do you think your memory's worse than other people's memory?
No, it's a fact.
Right.
No, it's everyone thinks this, but I went to a specialist, and I had spent 3 days being studied, and I think it's part of. I know.
Were you in there? Were you in there at the same time as 11 and 8?
I'm sorry.
No, that's a Stranger Things story.
Oh, I haven't seen that show.
Okay.
But sometimes people will say, what makes you good at your job, and I hate when people. There's like, when you're being interviewed, you're supposed to ask, so tell me what you're not good at. And then a lot of times people will say, well, I'm too good at this, or I'm too, and it's really annoying, right?
Yeah.
And
my problem is that I'm way too into it.
Yeah, I care so much. And I actually think, honest to God, one of my advantages is that I have a terrible fucking memory. And it makes me feel every morning I wake up and I feel like I don't know anyone. I literally feel like I don't know enough people. And so I wake up every morning in a borderline panic where I'm like, I got to talk to a bunch of people today. And I know a lot of recruiters who just, I'm so jealous of their memories, and they just have a Rolodex in their head, and they just feel like they...
Dave Hahn is weird. Dave Hahn remembers everything. Everything.
Yeah.
I'm like, I was there and don't remember any of it.
Yeah.
And you remember all of the things.
Jeff Goodby will meet someone. Rich Silverstein, someone will come into our building who hasn't worked there for 4 years to come say hi to me and some friends. And Rich Silverstein will walk in and he goes, "Hey, how's it going, man? What are you working on?"
Oh.
Because he doesn't even know they left.
Right.
Jeff Goodby, someone can walk in who he hasn't seen for 15 years and he met once. And he'll be like, "Hey, Dan, how's it going?" It's so... I'm so envious,
Right.
I'm so envious of those people. I meet recruiters, and I could list tons of them who just have these Rolodexes. But in a weird way, I think I always feel inadequate with not feeling like I know anyone.
So how do you manage? How do you manage? Like this is the thing that's really cool about how you work. And I don't know how many recruiters do this, and I haven't had this conversation with other recruiters because you and I can I say we're friends?
Yeah,
we're friends.
Yeah, we make each other.
So you're figuring out this. You're proactively, actively here with or without positions, and you're talking to creators and looking at work, and you're kind of always feeling what's available out there.
Yes.
How do you keep track of it?
I have a weird system. It would probably look like a beautiful mind on my database.
But you do.
It's my way of... I was not given the tools as a child I never had a specialist come in and be like, "Here's how you should do this."
I had a specialist that I guess I was diagnosed with something, and I'm supposing it must have been ADD.
Yeah.
And their whole plan was to put like Dymo label things on everything in my room so I could stay organized.
Right. So yeah, there's systems. I never had it.
Yeah, but it wouldn't work unless you devise it yourself.
Right. And so I've just made up my own weird systems. And you're right. I mean, again, part of my, I think maybe not that disease I feel is from, it keeps me out all the time. I come here all the time. Mm-hmm. I want to see every class, even if we're not hiring that moment. It's like,
it's kind of cool too for us to have that outside view of So how does it look? How are we doing?
Good. This class is really good.
Okay, good. Right.
It's the stock market. It's up, it's down, it's up, it's down. Hopefully over 10 years it's gone up.
Exactly.
And
there's zigzags, but it's up.
Yeah. So I met a bunch of kids today that I really liked. But I feel there's it is hard as shit to find good people.
So do you have in your mind the filter / screen litmus test, whatever, of Rich and Jeff or of a creative director that you may be looking to hire to run a piece of business? I mean, are you their eyes and ears in a lot of ways, or
yes,
are you trusted to sort of be the judge?
All of the above. So at a junior level, it's on me. Mm-hmm. At a mid level, it's more of a team effort, and at a very senior level, I really lean heavily on them. Mm-hmm. So occasionally, I've told Rich this recently, so I'm not saying anything here I shouldn't say, but I will occasionally hire people, even if Rich has told me not to. Not very often, 10%.
Because you realize that this is a Rich filter thing that's not really relevant to what they're going to do. Or your instinct.
Rich is right the majority of the time, and so is Jeff. Mm. But there's occasional moments when I go out. I've met, if I'll talk to 100 people and then I'll bring them 2, and then they might not like one of them, and sometimes they're right, 100%. But sometimes I'm like, you know what? I know what else is out there. This is fucking good, and we got to hire them. And the good news is, especially with Rich, 6 months time, by the time he interviews them to the time they move their family and they get there, that other candidate, Rich won't remember. So the other day we have this great designer who I just love deeply, and Rich was in my office and he was like, "My God, he's just incredible, isn't he?" And me and Margaret Johnson started laughing because we were both like, "Yeah, that's the guy that you told us not to hire, but we hired anyways." And he was like, "Well, do more of that." Like,
wow, that's amazing. So, all right. So, a question for a student: if I'm sending you my book, how do you click on a link and look through a whole book?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, you do. You don't like it? Do you tell them?
No. I don't have time.
Right.
Did
they get no reply?
No, I always. I mean, there's people will listen to this and say I emailed you and you never responded. I, honest to God,
I'm not
85%. 85%. I try my best to email. A simple thank you so much. I'll check it out. I'll let you know if we got anything. So I definitely try my best. I definitely look at when people send me stuff. I always look at it. I have a folder. I might not look at it now, but I'll look at it within a week. I don't do that. I don't give specific feedback unless I'm asked, and I won't give feedback if it's not specific. So if you email me your book and say, "What do you think of my book?" Dude, I don't have time. And
no one does.
And you have to understand, from my perspective, a book, honestly, to look at with all of your films, case studies, and everything, it's going to take 25 minutes.
I was going to say 35.
Yeah, and so 25 minutes of my day, and then to formulate a response that makes sense and is worthy of your time, it's an hour. So I don't. But if you ask me, like, hey, on my Adidas campaign, the last 10 seconds of that thing feels funky to me, or do you call bullshit on this social cause?
That's so perfect, because I'm glad to hear you say this, because this is exactly what Jen Majo and I told all 3 grad classes this week. Be very specific and to the point with your ask.
Yeah, it's why students will ask me this all the time. Well, is there a mentorship program? And I say, you know what? If you walk in and I assign you a mentor, you're going to be disappointed.
Right.
Because that person's incredibly busy. And if you're just expecting them to just think about you all the time, right, you have to think about how busy is that person and how can I go in there, help them, and be very specific about the questions I'm asking. The very open-ended, well, you're my mentor now, like those don't go very well.
It's impossible. It's ridiculous. And I think this is going to sound cynical, and I sound like an asshole when I say this, but like, not everybody really cares about helping the junior. Like, not everybody has the or necessarily the vision and maturity to be a mentor just because they're a mid-level creative in an ad agency. But I think you hit the nail on the head that, like, and I've said this on the podcast, to this in class, the mentorships don't happen. They're manufactured by the mentee by asking simple questions. Yeah. And that's really important.
The thing that I will say is I don't tell people, I don't give criticisms on portfolios when it's unsolicited ever. Mm-hmm. I don't feel like it's my place. I don't. It's weird. You just graduate from school and you send me the portfolio and you don't, like, I'm not gonna just rip it apart. People change. I've seen portfolios I would have never hired, and if I just tell that person, hey man, you got to do something else, and then 5 years later, it's So what I usually tell people is, like, if we're not going to hire him, I just say, and I mean this, keep in touch. Send me work you're proud of. Just keep sending me work you're proud of, and over 5, 6, 7 years, I've seen people's portfolios completely change, and someone I would have written off at can blow me away later.
How do you feel about someone who sends you a link to their website and you're busy as hell and you don't get to it for a week, and they email you back a week later and saying, hey, just reminding you, I sent you my book last week. Can you take a look at it? Is that pushy?
No.
That's what I thought. Okay.
No.
Anything else you want to talk?
Yeah, I mean, the thing I'll say on that point is I meet kids all the time who say that they were rejected. And I was like, oh, interesting. How were you rejected? Well, they didn't respond to me. And I was like, well, that's not rejection.
No.
Rejection is, we're not interested. We're not going to hire you. If I don't respond to you, honestly, I'm probably too busy. Mm-hmm. So if you remind me, I don't care. That's fine. I think that's fine. I just think do it in an interesting way and do it, do it in a way that's thoughtful for the person and try to connect with them in some manner.
Yes, exactly. All right, let's talk about this article you wrote for Adweek. Unless there's anything else you want to talk about your job.
Let's just jump in. Let's jump into this.
So, can I read the beginning of this part?
Yeah.
Zach says my 40th birthday. Zach says my 40th birth. God, why can't I speak?
Birthday.
My 40th birthday was recently, which means I'm also celebrating my 20th year in advertising. Congratulations,
Thanks.
20th year in advertising.
Half my life.
So now that I'm in my 40s, I thought I'd make a list. I hear that's something 40-year-olds like to do. He said in parentheses. Is that true? We do that? I'm not 40. I'm something like 50. Of the top recommendations I'd give young creatives just starting out. Number 1, it's called a job hunt for a reason.
Yeah. This shit is hard. that I'm just trying to emphasize. I'm trying to emphasize that there are thousands of qualified people working really hard every single day trying to get the job that you want. And just because you have a thing you're proud of, or just because you went to a good school, does not mean you're just going to send an email and you're going to get a job. Mm-hmm. It is a focused thing. You need to have a reason. You need to chase it. You need to go for it. And so if you want to work at a place, you need to do your homework. You need to understand the type of work that they do. You need to make a book that type of company would respond to. And you have to outperform a bunch of other well-qualified people who are out there. So, I just try to emphasize the job hunt part because I regularly meet students who they feel a little like they feel very lax, about the hunt part. They're just kind of like, well, I have a portfolio now, so I get a job, right? And it's like, no, it's not the way it works.
You know what the corollary of that in the real world is that good work always sells. The clients always buy the best idea, the good work. And so it speaks for itself. It's like, it doesn't really speak for itself because there's a lot of other elements at work behind the scenes that you actually have to sell your work.
Right.
So you actually have to work to get into an agency the same way. The book is not just going to necessarily magically get you in.
That's right. And I think the last time I was here, you asked me about an article I wrote about being well-rounded. Mm-hmm. Specialization. Oh, yeah. Specialization only gets you so far. You can be the best designer in a building, but if you don't have the skills to run a group, you're never going to run a group. Oh, if you don't have the skills to deal with client presentations and sell stuff, so you could be there could be a worse designer who's doing better than you in the agency, and that can frustrate you to no end. But it requires a few things. And the job hunt is, you really need to understand the company, why you'd want to work there, what you would offer. You kind of have to. You got to spend a little bit of time on it.
Yeah, this is for you guys out there that are listening, that know for a fact that the person got a job from your class who wasn't as good as you are. And the reason that they got a job and you didn't is because they said something in an email or did something in an interview or connected in some way that made that person attractive to that other person at that moment.
Yeah.
So talent gets you really far in school. Yeah. Doesn't get you as far once graduation comes.
You need to be somewhat well-rounded. Of course, I mean, we want exceptional art directors and writers and designers and all that stuff. But Rich is he just spoke at your school and he said, you got to get in front of a room and be able to sell an idea. Mm-hmm. So students that think, well, the great ideas will always win. That's not true.
Right. Isn't it more important that you can sell work than that? Isn't it more important for me as a copywriter that I can sell my work and connect with the client than that I can do a layout?
Well, what I would say is if that's your strength, then I'm going to put you with a partner who's, I like to take people who you might have an exceptional talent who can barely talk. So then I'll stick them with someone who maybe like isn't as strong conceptually, right. But holy shit, they can run a room.
Great. All right, number 2, stay humble.
Yeah.
It's possible that you aren't as great as you think you are just yet, you said.
Yeah. Yeah, well, think about this. I mean, okay, every creative director who listens to this advice will go, when I was a student, I thought my book was amazing. And now I look at it and I'm mortified that anyone would ever see that thing. I think we talked about this last time, but we had this musician named Lil Dicky who worked at Goodby, and he got really famous, and he's now quite famous. And when he first was writing songs and getting famous, he was like, I am the best rapper. Like, he was telling me that I'm the best rapper, which is the mindset you need. But now I talk to him and he's like, oh my God, I was so wrong. I can't listen to any of those songs. And, I just think that I see kids who think that their portfolios there's nothing wrong with them. And I would just stay humble. And when you have good creatives giving you good advice, like, just take it.
That's great. All right, number 3, screw the flan. Is it flan or flan?
Flan.
If your first job, I'm going to read it. If your first job is at a tech company, don't stay because of the free flan or the bowling alley. Right? Beware of golden handcuffs early on; they'll hinder your career. So, what do you mean? Screw the flan?
Well, I worked at Google for a bit, and it's a great company. And if that had been my first job, I think I would have been screwed. Because I think I would have been so
seduced.
Yes, because they'll change your oil, in your car while you're working.
That's a problem. It's a problem. They feel like they have to do that to you because you're indentured.
It's definitely there's a little bit of that too, but I think you want to stay because of the opportunities, and a lot of companies can be really. They can handcuff you with stuff, but really you should be staying for the opportunities, especially when you're young. Now, when you're older and childcare and commutes and all that stuff, that's not my point. But as a youngster, don't go to a place because of the bowling alley or the free food.
Right. Number 4, be you.
Yeah, that's all we're looking for. It's cliche, but agencies are just looking for unique perspectives and people who are themselves and offer a really strong, unique perspective. And so if you're really uptight, just own it and be that person. If you're really wacky and your head's in the clouds, be that person. And we want lots of authentic people in our building, but lots of different type of authentic people in our building.
It's great. Number 5, run toward the fire.
Yeah, especially for juniors. Like when I first started at Goodby, we had Pacific Bell, which I don't even know if they exist anymore in the Bay Area, but no one wanted to work on it, and that was I just immediately went into everyone's office and was like, I'll work on it. Give me all of it, and it wasn't that I was not better than other people at all, but when you're a creative director or when your name's on the door of a place and someone on their own is knocking on your door and saying, give me all that shit. I'll take all of it. And they see you work your ass on it, work your ass off on it, they're going to love you for it. So when you're young, absolutely.
It's great. By the way, listeners, there's 13 of these, and we're halfway through. Number 6, follow opportunities. This is key, huge, massive. I mean, we say this all the time.
This is just, again, this is for young people, and it's saying don't follow the money yet. And, of course, salary is super important, and I'm not saying undersell yourself. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when a good place offers you a solid salary and a crappy place offers you an exceptional salary, it's going to feel really good to make that exceptional salary and call your family and friends and tell them all. But long term, those good opportunities are going to make you so much more valuable. And I just see I've seen really young talent get pulled into places where I go, oh my God, you're literally going to be forgotten about. And your trajectory, if you had just stuck around for a couple more years, could have been so huge.
Right.
So
that's interesting too. The couple of years, because there are people who've gone to your agency that the ramp was a kind of a long ramp.
Absolutely. To
success.
Yeah. I
think that I don't want to say any names, and I think that they're probably thankful that they didn't jump somewhere else because it didn't come right away.
This happens all the time, and there's times when I question our thing is a little slow sometimes. Our trajectory, like we're very tough on titles. What I say is our titles are meaningful. Like you are a creative director when you run huge, multiple, complex pieces of business. That's what a creative director is for us. It's not a title just to keep you around. It's not a title so we pay you less. It's a really meaningful thing. Now, if you, on your road to become a creative director with us is long, but the people who, when they get there, I mean, our ACDs become ECDs at other agencies.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So when someone hires someone from us or when someone has a title with us, it really, really is meaningful. Now, on the flip side of that, I meet people all the time who say they're CDs and they're 4 years in, and they've been given a CD title, and I go, okay, well, I can't hire you as a CD, and they're like, well, I am, and I'm okay, great. What does that mean?
Right.
Well, I'm working. I was like, dude, that's just a regular title in most places. But they're so hung up on the I'm now a CD, I can never go back, and then they miss out on opportunities.
Right, I've seen that too.
Yeah.
Do you see the movie Jiro Dreams of Sushi?
Yeah.
I mean, the guy spent 10 years on rice.
Jeff and Rich regularly say it takes 5 years to not be terrible at TV. It takes 5 years of doing TV before all of a sudden you start getting good at it.
Yeah.
Like this stuff's hard. It takes time. And, when I worked at Wyden, I was in a room when Dan this guy was saying he wanted to be promoted to a CD. And Dan said, I'm not going to promote you because I've only seen you have it easy, like good. I've never seen you when shit was bad.
Oh, it's interesting. It's fascinating.
And you need that. You need all of this. So it's a long road. It takes a while. You don't need to rush it. As long as you're being paid well and treated fairly and getting good opportunities, like, you just kind of trust that a little bit.
Yeah, great. So we can skip 7. Speaking of titles, we covered that. Number 8, optimism helps. I'd say you're more optimistic than I am.
So I read this recently that psychologists have proven that temperament is like right out of the womb. Like kids, whatever temperament you have,
it's baked in,
and a little bit of an optimist temperament helps a lot in this industry because it's a grind. It's long. It's there's incredible amounts of rejection, and so and it's also again, leadership likes to have people around who are trying to keep things positive and optimistic.
Yeah. Negotiate. You said most agencies pay their juniors the same salary, but try to negotiate a bit when you accept your first job.
Yeah.
How much room is there?
Well, we the reason I encourage everyone to negotiate because I think everyone should be paid fairly. It's super important to make a good salary and feel good about what you're making. And so if you take an offer that you're not excited about, you're gonna be bummed no matter how good the opportunities are. You're always gonna feel like you were screwed over. But specific to juniors, the truth is every junior at GSP makes the same. My guess is every junior at BBDO makes the same, and Crispin, and but it's a good practice to just start negotiating. And then I also read that women specifically, the numbers was staggering, that how less often women negotiate than men. And so, I encourage every junior to try negotiation, and especially women. Like, really, you need to get comfortable with negotiation.
It's a business transaction. This is not personal.
Yeah, right. No, totally. The shit that people ask me, it is crazy. It's crazy.
Like what?
Nonstop. I have people up my ass every single day who think they are God's gift. And asking for everything under the sun. And worst case scenario, we say no, and then move on, and that's it. That's the worst that happens. 1 out of 100 can be terrible, and then eventually they can rub you the wrong way. But you can ask for things, and we can say no, or we can say yes, and then that's it. It doesn't need to be some terrible traumatic thing.
Right. Sure.
So for juniors now, most agencies aren't going to. They're going to pay you the same salary, but there are little things you could just, again, you don't want to be annoying, but for example, we had an intern who we hired to full-time. So he was already living in San Francisco. She was already living in San Francisco. And so she was negotiating with me, and I said, I'm sorry, there isn't really any room on the salary. And she said, well, do you usually relocate people? And I was like, yeah, we will. And she was like, well, I already live here, but I want to ship all my stuff here. Will you pay for it? And I was like, you know what? That's great. Like, I'll give you I don't know, $1,500 to ship your stuff here. Yeah. So that's a way that you can negotiate. That's different than just about salary.
Yeah, which is also really good money too, because $1,500 would have cost her about $2,500 pre-tax.
Well, so that's interesting because actually I think it was $1,000 net. Okay. So I think it was $1,500.
So she did have to pay income tax?
I think we figured it out. So it was $1,000 net.
Okay.
So it was like $1,000 net to FedEx stuff here.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right. So number 10, you said listen to your clients. So this is for young professionals, right?
Yeah. This is something that Rich says all the time, which is you cannot force clients to do things, and if you do, even if it was good, it's not going to turn out well for you.
And if it's bad, they're blaming you because you forced them.
And even if it's good, they resent you. Some of our best work, we've definitely pushed really hard on people, and then we've lost that client. And so you have to listen. You have to care about what clients think. You have to buddy up with them. You have to be an ally. And I think that a lot of creatives think they can just force their clients to do stuff, and you can't. No one wants to be forced to do it.
It's like hiring an interior designer or interior architect who's going to design like a like a room for you, and they have an idea of something they love, and you're living there, and they can make you do it. You're going to go in that room every day and say, "That's his idea."
Yeah. Well,
I didn't want this.
Especially when you're married, you realize like you might be able to like I might be able to force my wife to do something, like, but it's not going to work out well in the long run. You know what I mean?
I was just literally thinking about my wife and I finished our basement a few years ago. We hired a guy to sketch out this console for the TV, and he listened to our problems, and like he did exactly what we wanted, a way that I could never have imagined it. But if he'd come in and said, "You know what I like? I think it'd be really cool," and just said, "That's just what we need to do," I probably would have fired him.
Yeah.
But if I'd done what he wanted to, I would have resented it, even if it was awesome.
And if he brought you stuff that you weren't ready for, but he or she took their time and really walked you through the process and was listening to what you were saying and going back and making adjustments.
It feels like you're part of it. It feels like you're solving my problems. That's what listening
These
to clients
people are paying us tons of money.
Yeah.
I mean, again, you're a junior creative. You don't realize that, Pepsi, how many millions of dollars is Pepsi or BMW paying us? Mm-hmm. And so you roll in there and you go, well, they better do this or they're idiots. It doesn't fly.
That doesn't work that way. What does ride the dips mean? It's number 11.
Well, if you've ever read a finance book, they say don't sell when things are low. Mm-hmm. And I think there's been a bit of a trend of people hopping around. They do their month and a year and a half or 2 years, and then they leave.
I've seen that.
And my own experience, I learned more when the agency was struggling. Mm-hmm. When agencies are having harder times, I've grown more.
Of course.
And so sometimes things are effortless. Like sometimes you'll have a couple of years in an agency where clients are just buying things, money's pouring in, and weirdly things seem easier. And who knows why that is? But then occasionally, the market crashes, clients stop spending money, things get tough, and when things get tough, if you just leave every time an agency isn't killing it, I find that people don't really become veterans. And
interesting.
I'm not saying stay in a shitty job. I'm not saying stay in an abusive job. I'm just saying if you're in a place that respects you, treats you well, gives you good opportunities, pays you well, and then they go through a rough spell, hanging tight through that will make you tougher. And also, leadership sees who sticks around. When you've been there through the good and bad, they remember that, and they are much more likely to make you a leader. They're much more likely to make someone a leader who they know when things were tough. When Dan said, "I've never seen you really struggle. I've never seen you in a terrible situation, and I've never seen you get out of that." That's what he means. And you don't want to give the keys to your agency to someone who you've never seen really go through the tough stuff with you. So
very interesting.
That's what I mean.
Plus, from a personal perspective, you're just collecting similar experiences instead of building something bigger.
Yeah, you just go in.
Starting over.
As soon as things get tough, you leave. It happens. I mean, as soon as people are like, I'm not getting on the briefs I want, or this sucks, or blah, 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 I'm out of here. And, maybe you're not getting on the briefs you want because there's a bunch of other people who've proven themselves repeatedly. Right. And as soon as they phase into something else, you're going to be right behind them.
Interesting. All right, number 12, talk to leadership.
Okay, this is especially true for me right now because of some of my own frustrations with some people that I'm working with on around this type of stuff. Talk to leadership. What I mean by that is, like, if you own a company, it would be weird if you're in the building every day and you've got 200 or 300 employees and no one talks to you other than just coming in, do work, and leave. Right. Say hi. Like, hey, you just won the Lifetime Achievement Award at Cannes, Rich. Like, that's so cool. How was that? It's not weird to do that, right? Build a rapport so that way when you have complaints, you already have the rapport. What my own frustration, which I was just talking about, which I've seen lately, is what people will do is they'll work really hard, do their thing in their office, but they only come to you when they have problems. Right, exactly. It's annoying. You don't want to help people. Right. You literally don't want to help people when all they do is bring you problems.
They're not your parents.
Yeah.
They don't love you unconditionally.
Right.
You maybe want to check in with your parents when you don't have some problem going on.
So if you've checked in with me and if you're just keep me posted on, hey man, these projects are going well, or like I've been struggling over here, but we're figuring things out, blah, blah, blah. But then when you have a real big issue and you bring it to me, it's not the first time that you've ever come and talked to me.
It's really smart. Really good advice. And finally, save that money. That's huge.
This is just, I think you get older, and I think when I was young, you think if you make good money,
you get to do stuff.
But if you make good money, then you're wealthy.
Yeah.
But it's really, it's really honestly how much you have saved and what you have underneath you, I think. And the thing is advertising, ageism exists 100%. It's incredibly shitty to say. And me and some other folks I know are actually trying to work on some panels to discuss this more.
Yeah, look at Rich Silverstein. Like, is Rich Silverstein better or worse than he was 40 years ago? The man's 70 years old. When he was 30, was he better then?
He's better in some ways, and he's worse in some ways.
Better in a lot of ways.
Yeah, he's better in a lot of ways.
Right.
He totally. Yes, he's softer. There's all these things, but ageism exists in advertising. And if you're a 20-year-old and you're 25-year-old art director and you're making a good salary now, and you're going to keep making money for a while, how many 50-year-olds are in your agency in the creative department?
So we're making that now. There's no.
Right. So advertising pays incredibly well. I think we're all overpaid. I think advertising is an overpaid industry, which is great if you're in it.
Well, you have to realize what that means. It's like an athlete. It's like you're overpaid because their career's short.
Right.
So be intelligent with what you got, because you need to put some away for when you don't.
So I just turned 40, and I had that moment when I looked around and I was like, okay, I'm 40 years old. How many people around me in an most advertising agencies, the average age is, no jokes, 26 or 27. That's the average age in most agencies. So when you're 40, I'm not old. I don't feel old. And in most industries of 40-year-olds, whatever. In advertising, unfortunately, and it's terrible, you look around, there's not a lot of 40-year-olds. You look at 45, there's much less. 50, so save money. It's just a good thing to do in general, but I just know so many people who've made incredible salaries for 15 years in advertising, and then the phone starts slowing down a little bit, and they didn't have $1 to show for it.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah.
That's a bummer. So, that's a bummer to end on. So, wow. So, all right. So what does the rest of this year look like for you guys? And where you go from Atlanta, and what's how's the temperature at Goodby Silverstein and Partners these days?
Things are good. We have a bunch of new clients, so it's we're in the good phase where we've got a bunch of new clients where they love us. Good. It's also tricky figuring each other out.
How involved are you with people once they're in the building? When you hire people, super
yeah.
involved.
I don't know what most agency recruiters are like. I think a lot of them actually just spend most of their time recruiting. And honest to God, it's 9 to 5 or 9 to 6. I'm actually just dealing with stuff in the building. And then usually it's
non-recruiting things.
Yeah. I mean, we've got a bunch of great creatives, and great creatives are usually complex. Yeah. I've got 60 or 70 people who, kind of funnel in and out of my office, like sharing some things with me, or wanting to set some goals or change some stuff. So I've got a lot of that going on. We just constantly are dealing with, every day in advertising, there's new issues that come up. So I tend to bounce around a lot. That's really it's the most fun part of the job.
That's really cool. Thank you so much for talking again.
Yeah.
It's great seeing you.
Good seeing you too.
Can we give out contact information?
Yeah. My email address is Zach, ZACH _Canfield, CANFIELD @gspsf.com.
Right, Zach _Canfield @gspsf, as in San Francisco.com. You can reach me as always at danspodcast@mac.com. Make sure to like the Facebook page, facebook.com/DGMS podcast, and all the past episodes with pictures of the guests when we recorded are at balsterville.com. That's where we host the entire catalog of 300 and something episodes. Thanks for listening, Zach. Thanks again, man.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Listeners, see you in 2 weeks. Bye.